Chers collègues, mesdames et messieurs,
Ladies and gentlemen,
cet endroit
this place
chargé
is loaded with
au
memories.
XVIIIe siècle, deux armées
From
se
the
sont
18th
affrontées
century,
ici
two
dans une
armies
bataille qui a
faced
changé
here
à
that,
jamais
in a battle that
le cours de
changed
l'histoire
forever
de
the
ce
course of
continent.
history of this continent.
Lorsque la fumée s'est
When the
dissipée,
smoke
les
cleared,
deux commandants, Wolfe et Montcalm,
the two
gisaient
leaders,
mourants.
Wolfe
Le
and
destin
Montcalm,
lié même dans la mort.
set the destiny
La
even in death.
Nouvelle-France
New
était
France
tombée.
had fallen.
L'Amérique du Nord britannique était née.
British North America was set.
Il aurait été facile,
It would have been easy
voire prévisible,
Even
d'en
predictable.
rester là.
to leave
Le
it at that.
scénario habituel de la conquête.
The
Les
usual
vaincus
scenario of
sont
conquest.
assimilés.
Those
Le
who
langue
are
supprimée, le
victored
droit
over,
interdite.
they can't have their
Le
faith, their
droit
language, their laws,
C'est ce que
their
les
rights replaced.
conquérants ont fait pendant
This is what the
des
conquerors did
millénaires.
for
La
many,
grande
many years.
déportation des Acadiens
From
en
the great
passant
deportation of
par
the
le rapport
Acadians,
d'Abraham suite à la rébellion des patriotes,
and then
certains
the rebellion of the
cherché
patriots,
à imposer ce modèle.
some have tried to
Assimilation.
impose this model
La
of
logique
assimilation,
habituelle de la conquête.
the usual logic of
Finalement,
conquest. But
Ce n'est pas la
finally,
voie que le Canada a choisie.
that wasn't the way Canada chose. Why?
D'abord,
First,
grâce à la résilience
thanks
des
to the
francophones.
resilience
Une
of francophones,
résilience
a
parfois
resilience
silencieuse,
that was both
souvent
silent
combative, mais
often
toujours
combative,
déterminée à
but
préserver
always
une langue,
determined to
une culture
preserve
et
their
une
language,
identité.
culture, and identity.
Ensuite,
And then,
par pragmatisme. Les
through
autorités
pragmatism,
britanniques ont
the
rapidement
British
compris
authorities
qu'on
quickly
ne gouverne
understood
pas durablement 70 000 habitants
that we
contre
could
leur
not
volonté.
fight 70,000
avec les colonies
residents against their
américaines
will,
instables au
especially with the American colonies to the
Ainsi,
south.
Tout au long de l'histoire de notre
So,
pays,
throughout the
des
history of our
décisions
country,
ont été
decisions
prises
have
pour
been
construire quelque
taken
chose
to
de
build
différent
something
ici,
different here,
ensemble.
together.
Cela n'a pas toujours été une ligne droite.
It wasn't always a
Les
straight
progrès
line.
ont été réalisés à travers des
Progress
tensions,
was realized through
des compromis et
tensions,
parfois des
compromises,
échecs.
and
Mais à
sometimes
plusieurs
failures.
reprises, le
But
Canada a
often,
choisi une
or
voie
repeatedly, Canada
différente.
chose a different
And
path.
from that choice, initially practical, even self-interested, something remarkable emerged. Not a myth, not a miracle, but a growing commitment that coexistence could make us stronger, that we can build an identity which not only respects our differences, but also celebrates them. Un projet audacieux, que
An
deux
ambitious
peuples
project.
récemment ennemis, parlant des langues différentes,
Two different people
pratiquant des
speaking
religions différentes,
different
vivant
languages
sous
and
des
religions,
traditions
living under
juridiques différentes,
different
partager le même
legal
pays et build it
traditions,
together.
could share a
The
country.
Canadian philosopher Charles Taylor contends that people aren't blank slates, but that our identities, personal and national, are constituted through history. In his words, the past is sedimented in the present, and our choices are shaped by what came before. Our country was built on the bedrock of three peoples: Indigenous, French, and British. Long before the battle on these plains, long before the first French ships sailed up the St. Lawrence, Indigenous peoples were the original stewards of this land. They built nations, trading networks, and systems of governance that spanned the entire continent. The Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Innu shaped this land and were shaped by it. Then the French came. They built a new society adapted to the realities of North America, shaped by the river and forest, by trade with indigenous nations, and by the determination to survive and flourish in this land. When the British came, that civilization did not disappear. It endured, and now it thrives. La Confédération est née de cette histoire.
The Confederation was born of this history. Cartier declared that Canadians were different races, not to have war, but to work together for their own well-being, to live side by side, like large families. This pact was renewed with Wilfrid Laurier governed a country that had conquered his own people. He was raised with the official bilingualism, and then when Quebecers chose at different times to remain within Canada. We think that this partnership, despite all these frustrations, deserves not only to be preserved, but to be strengthened. The plains of Abraham symbolize a battlefield, yes, but it also symbolizes the place where Canada began to make the historic choice of prioritizing adaptation rather than assimilation, where partnership rather than domination, and collaboration rather than division. Yes, this foundation was imperfect. It excluded too many people. It rested in part on the depossession, colonization of Indigenous peoples and the violation of treaties concluded with them. But this foundation, with a fundamental idea, is that unity does not necessarily mean uniformity, that we can share a country without conforming to one single identity, that our differences are managed in respect, and this is a source of strength. This choice, present throughout our history, resonates in the choices made by newcomers who come from all four corners of the world to settle in Canada. It resonates in the choices made by each generation determined to continue to build. Not on land, but on something more demanding and more durable. A common commitment to live together, accept our differences, and try to find common well-being. Each of these choices led to Canada being richer and more equitable and inclusive.
What makes Canada a great country? It's a great country for everyone. It's the greatest country in the world to be a regular person. You don't have to be born rich or to a landed family here. You don't have to be a certain color or worship a certain God. Canadians believe in the value of every other Canadian, their boundless potential to make this great country even better. Our ancestors, despite their differences, believed in each other and in us. Now, there are long periods of history where these values can prosper unchallenged. Ours is not one of them. Our values must be fought for. That's what we are doing. That's what Canadians want. Canadians are up for it. Our history traces an arc of broadening inclusion from biculturalism to multiculturalism, from being British subjects to becoming Canadian citizens, from being two founding peoples to being many peoples living in true partnership with Indigenous peoples. From William Lyon Mackenzie King's social citizenship to Louis Saint Laurent's liberal internationalism, from Diefenbaker's One Canada to Pierre Elliott Trudeau's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Brian Mulroney's environmentalism, to Justin Trudeau's pluralism and reconciliation. Each generation of Canadians has built a modern, progressive, liberal state that embraces the values of caring and sharing, of equity and fairness for all. Institutions make up the body of that progressive state, but our values are at its heart. Institutions, from the civil code to public health care, from modern self-government agreements to Parliament's recognition of the Quebec people as a nation. Values of inclusivity, fairness, solidarity, sustainability, and ambition. Canadians
I want to thank our audiences watching on the main network here at CTV in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Our coverage does continue on CTV News Channel.
Peoples are true partners. That commitment to inclusion was institutionalized, first in the Bill of Rights and then embedded in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It was manifest in our adoption of multiculturalism, first as policy and then as law. In the same spirit, the enshrinement into law of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples reflects our fundamental commitment to reconciliation and to respecting Indigenous peoples as equal partners in building our country together. And inclusion means going beyond the protection of rights to the commitment to creating a society in which everyone can flourish. That's why we introduced the Combating Hate Act, to preserve the freedom of people to practice their faith and culture without intimidation, harassment, or violence. Les Canadiens et Canadiennes
Canadians
les uns sur les autres, surtout dans les
rely on each
moments
other,
difficiles.
especially in hard
Et cet
times.
esprit de solidarité
And this spirit of
a
solidarity
inspiré les
has
fondements de
inspired
l'État-providence moderne au lendemain
the
de
modern
la
state
Grande Dépression.
after the Great
Notamment
Depression,
l'assurance chômage, les allocations
namely
familiales
unemployment
et la
insurance,
sécurité
family
de la
benefits, and old age
De nouveaux
security.
piliers institutionnels de
New
solidarité
institutional
ont été
pillars of this
ajoutés
solidarity
avec
were
la
added
création de
with the
régime de
creation
pension du
of the
Canada et de
Canada
la
Pension
loi
Plan
canadienne sur la santé.
and the Health Canada Act. I am proud.
Vous êtes fiers
You are
que
proud
nous ayons
that
élargi
we
ces
have
fondements au
broadened
cours des dernières années
these
avec
foundations
le
over
régime
recent
national de soins
years
dentaires, les
with the
services
National
de
Dental
garde
Care
d'enfants, le
and
plan
National Child
d'assurance
Care,
médicaments et le programme national
the
d'alimentation
prescription
scolaire.
insurance, and
Canada,
school food
C'est lorsque
programs.
nous sommes
In
unis
Canada, it's
que
when we're
nous
united
sommes les plus
that
forts.
we are
Lorsque nous
strongest.
veillons les uns
When
sur les autres
we look
et
after
que
each
nous
other
veillons à ce
and
qu'aucun enfant, aucune
we make
famille,
sure
personne ne soit
no
laissé
child,
au
no
côté.
family, nobody is
Cet
left
esprit de
behind.
solidarité et
This
de
spirit of
générosité
solidarity
contribue à
con-
définir notre identité en tant
contributes
que
to
nation.
our identity as a nation.
Canadians believe that fairness includes equality of opportunity, so that every Canadian has a shot at a good and fulfilling life. And the foundation of this commitment is access of every Canadian to comparable public services, particularly education and healthcare. These commitments were institutionalized when equalization was
A
first
sincere welcome to our audience in Alberta. Joining us on our main network, we are covering the Prime Minister's special address to Canadians live from Quebec City. Let's take a
We
listen.
strengthen the sense of security that Canadians rely on every day. A strong and united Canada stands up for families and workers and protects those who are most vulnerable, whether they're a newcomer, a person with a disability, or a member of the two-spirited LGBTQI+ community. Now, friends, the advent of artificial intelligence will simultaneously challenge fairness, inclusion, and solidarity, while it creates enormous opportunities for how we live, work, and play. And these tensions can only be reconciled if AI works for all. AI can provide powerful solutions, better healthcare, better education, better government services. It can empower Canadians with new skills for more fulfilling jobs. But realizing that potential will require fundamental reforms to our education system, how we do skills training, and to our social welfare system. Our upcoming AI for All strategy will begin to tackle these challenges to maximize the potential of AI for all Canadians. Le développement durable assure l'équité.
Sustainable development ensures equity. Canadians are the guardians of a vast and precious territory. We've taken measures to protect it by using international treaties such as the Acid Rain Treaty and the 2015 Paris Accord, as well as our constant progress in our conservation of our natural heritage, thanks to commitments made in Montreal in 2022. In coming months, the government will implement new, ambitious plans to accelerate the sustainable development of the country, reduce and the energy for impact on individuals and research, and to protect natural resources in Canada.
Canada is an ambitious nation of builders and explorers. We mapped this continent before the Americans had even left St. Louis. We built a transcontinental railway in 5 years, the St. Lawrence Seaway in 4. We created a healthcare system that became a model for the world. This government, Canada's new government, shares that ambition. We've already removed all federal barriers to interprovincial trade, and we're catalyzing hundreds of billions of dollars of investments in nation-building projects. We're doubling our defense spending by the end of this decade. And we're working to ensure that core Canadian capabilities, including in AI, in quantum, in cyber, and critical minerals, will maximize the economic benefit for Canadians of these new security imperatives. Now we need to execute fairly and fast. Les valeurs canadiennes, telles que l'inclusion, la solidarité, l'équité,
such as solidarity, inclusion, ambition, sustainability, are not abstract ideas, but integral parts of our very identity. Our task is to be inspired by it, to continue to build in these revolutionary times. Times like this, Canada needs to assume two roles at the same time. First, it needs to be a bastion of security and prosperity for our citizens. We need to defend our sovereignty, secure our borders, protect our communities, and build an economy that offers possibility to all Canadians.
That's why we're undertaking the strongest tightening of the criminal justice system in generations. It's why we're making the largest investment in defense in generations. It's why we're securing our borders through more CBSA agents and greater surveillance resources. And it's why we're building one Canadian economy and launching nation-building projects that will connect and transform our country. We will give ourselves far more than any foreign government can ever take from us. A core mission, while we're doing that, a core mission of our government is to lower costs for Canadians. That's why on day one we canceled the divisive consumer carbon tax. That's why we've cut income taxes for 22 million Canadians. It's why we've cut taxes for first-time homebuyers. It's why we reduced tolls on the Confederation Bridge and Atlantic Ferry fares. It's why we're launched, and we have launched, Build Canada Homes, to build affordable housing construction at a pace not seen since the end of the Second World War. This past fall, we launched the automatic federal benefits for up to 5.5 million low-income Canadians to ensure that our most vulnerable get the money to which they are entitled. We also made the National School Food Program permanent so that kids have the nutrition they need at school. We've started, as we mean to go on, with a relentless focus on improving affordability to help Canadians get ahead. I said we had to do two things. The first is to be a bastion. The second is to be a beacon, an example to a world that's at sea. In a time of rising populism and ethnic nationalism, Canada can show how diversity is a strength, not a weakness. In a time of democratic decline, we can show how rights can be protected and equal freedoms endure. And in a time of rising walls and thickening borders, we can demonstrate how a country can be both open and secure, welcoming and strong, principled and powerful. There are literally billions of people who aspire to what we have built: a pluralistic society that works, a public square that's loud, diverse, and free, an economy that delivers broadly shared prosperity, a democracy that chooses to protect the most vulnerable against the powerful. Now, Canada can't solve all the world's problems, but we can show that another way is possible, that the arc of history isn't destined to be warped towards authoritarianism and exclusion. It can still bend towards progress and justice. There you go. Nous ne faisons aucune illusion.
We have no illusions. The world is more and more dangerous and divided. Former alliances are being redefined, and in some cases, broken. In this new era, Canada's leadership will be defined not only by the strength of our values, but also the value of our strength. We are moving on to the most important military strengthening we've done since the Second World War. We have resources that the world needs. We have the talent needed to transform this potential into growth. And we have the ambition to face down the challenges of this new era. We consolidate our strength within our borders, and we are strengthening our resilience by diversifying partnerships around the world, thanks to a multidisciplinary approach that defines our values and advances our interests.
So let me return to where I began, where Canada began. 267 years ago, this ground was soaked with blood. Two empires had collided, one had prevailed, and the question was, what will come next? The answer that emerged slowly, imperfectly, not without struggle, but unmistakably, was cooperation, partnership, a shared future. That response was not inevitable. That response was chosen. Chosen by British administrators who eventually saw the wisdom of cooperation. Chosen by French Canadians who eventually committed to build within the new reality. Chosen by the founders of Confederation who believed that two peoples could become partners in one country. And chosen by every subsequent generation who built on that foundation. Les traces de notre passé sont ancrées.
Traces of our past are anchored in our present, in our two official languages, in our federal system, and our cooperation that grows from a feeling of belonging. We are now the guardians of this heritage, and it's our responsibility to have it bear fruit, since we have the chance to do so.
In this time of great consequence, we are choosing. We are choosing to work together to build one Canadian economy. We've made great progress over the past year. Now we have to redouble our efforts with the provinces and territories. We're choosing to find new markets and develop new partnerships. We've announced a dozen new economic and security partnerships across 4 continents in the last 6 months. More will come, all will deepen. We choose to build in solidarity with Canadian workers, creating hundreds of thousands of good-paying union jobs, and investing in apprenticeships and skills training so that young Canadians can have the careers of tomorrow. On choisit de bâtir avec des ressources canadiennes.
We choose to build with Canadian resources, using materials and workers that are Canadian. We will be our own best customers. and
Parce
build
que
durably,
nous savons que
because we
lutter
know
contre les
that
changements climatiques
fighting
est à la
climate
fois
change
un
is
devoir
both
moral
a moral
et un
duty
impératif économique.
and an economic
We're choosing to
imperative.
build inclusively, in full partnership with Indigenous peoples, inclusively to ensure that AI benefits all Canadians, to respect diversity, to accept others, and to combat hate so that every Canadian feels free to be themselves and can thrive in the greatest country on earth. When we live our values, we grow as individuals and we build as a people. When we're kind, kindness grows. When we're united, unity grows. When we're Canadian, inclusive, fair, ambitious, Canada grows. Canada and the United States have built a remarkable partnership in the economy, in security, and in rich cultural exchange. But Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous.
We are masters at home. It's our country,
C'est notre avenir. Le
our
choix
future,
nous appartient.
and it's our
We
choice.
choose to build a bright future worthy of the ground on which we stand. We choose Canada. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.